President Biden is facing a primary challenge from a sitting congressman, Dean Phillips of Minnesota. Phillips yesterday announced he won't seek re-election to Congress, so he can put all his time and energy into the presidential race. But will he be able to pull off a historic upset to take the Democratic nomination next summer? Let's go ahead and ask him. We're now joined by Minnesota Congressman and Democratic presidential hopeful Dean Phillips. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Great to be with you, and the answer is darn right.
Okay, so my question is, why are you running for president?
Well, very simply, Kelsey, the country is asking for change. Over 70% of Americans, both sides of the aisle, want to turn the page from both Donald Trump and President Biden. And by the way, I respect President Biden, but electability matters. The polls are horrific for Democrats. He and Vice President Harris are going to lose to Donald Trump, and as you just noted, even further behind to Nikki Haley. So I believe that matters. And right now, the Democratic Party prefers coronations, not competitions. I think that's unhealthy, especially when Americans are asking for choices. So I think it's a duty. It's also time for generational change, Kelsey. It is long overdue. We have a 21st century world approaching us, artificial intelligence, social media challenges, climate change, wars around the world. We have to address this in a way that I'm afraid generations of the past have not done well, and it's time to pass the torch. And I can't wait to get to it, and so far, so good.
Congressman, I have to be quite frank with you. I'm sure you understand the odds are really just not in your favor. No incumbent president has ever lost a primary challenge in modern American history. Do you believe you'll be on the ballot next November as a Democrat?
That's my intention, and no president in modern history has been this far behind in every single poll. Nationally, the battleground states, approval ratings. Clearly, there's a disconnect, and at a certain point, Democrats will have to heed the realities, and that takes some time. I'm going to be in this for many, many months, and I do believe come summer, there will be polls showing me head-to-head with former President Trump, in which I'm beating him, in which he will be beating President Biden, and then Democrats will have a choice to make, of course. I'm not burning bridges. I love my friends and colleagues back in Congress. There's a culture there, of course, of silence and staying in line and sitting down. But this is too important of a time, too much consequence to do that. And we need to be a courageous country right now. Courageous individuals all around the country to open their hearts and minds to voting for someone who they may not usually. We also need people to vote in primaries. This is very consequential, and democracy does not happen on its own. Do not entrust it to be done by others. It's time to get up, register to vote, vote in the primary. And of course, I'm offering my name because I think it's time for change, and it's going to be an extraordinary new American century if we're willing and have the courage to turn the page.
Well, do you think President Biden is more vulnerable to a fellow Democrat or an independent candidate like RFK Jr. or potentially Joe Manchin?
Well, right now, the data says that President Biden and Vice President Harris will lose to Donald Trump. They'll lose worse to Nikki Haley. Of course, RFK Jr. is peeling a lot of votes from actually both candidates right now. But as a Democrat, I have to say that Cornel West, Jill Stein, if Joe Manchin runs as an independent, is that good for Democrats who wish to beat Donald Trump? Of course not. That's why my encouragement is to everybody to enter the Democratic primary. That's why we have primaries. So you don't split the vote, so voters have a choice, and we identify the best candidate, best positioned, in this case, to beat the most dangerous man, I believe, in American history. And that's as simple as it works. But it takes people. It's not about the party. It's not about politics. It's about whether people who are saying they want change are going to get up and go out and vote and make it. And if we do it together, it's going to be quite extraordinary.
Yes, but if we talk about the polling numbers, it shows that you're currently trailing behind President Biden by a very substantial margin. You're even falling behind Marianne Williamson. What are you going to do to turn these polling numbers around?
Well, Kelsey, I'm not falling behind. I just started this about 3.5 weeks ago. So it's no surprise. In fact, I'm surprised I'd be at 4% right now. It takes months to develop name recognition. Of course, President Biden has a 50-year head start, and Marianne Williamson has run before. And I respect her for having the courage to get into this race. I think it's important to exercise our democratic muscles. I'm telling you, give me a few months, and you'll see climbing considerably in the polls over time. 4%, of course, is low, but this race is going to go on for a long time. The convention is not till the end of next summer, and we still have 2 months until the first primaries in New Hampshire, of course, South Carolina, Michigan, and others. So it takes time, and that's exactly what I'm doing, pounding the pavement, answering people's questions, traveling the country, showing up. I'm visible. I'm available. I want to meet you. And I believe that we got to change how we conduct our campaigns, and most of all, change how the executive branch is operated. Generations past have failed us. The country is terribly divided. And I want to have a bipartisan cabinet. I want to have the best and brightest representing every perspective in America. I want to have common ground dinners in the White House where average Americans, everyday Americans, come to the White House of all politics, get to meet their president and break bread and listen to one another and have conversation. I'm going to have a youth cabinet. It's time for change, and I'm going to bring it, and it's all about Americans wanting it. If we do, it's happening next November.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.